Hey, Brandon Carlisle here with Tough Enough Movement. Today we've got Kody Merritt, who is now a professional arm wrestler and used to be a probation and parole officer. We're going to walk through his life, lessons learned, what led him into probation and parole, what led him into arm wrestling, and where he is now. So let's just get a quick introduction of where you were born and raised, kind of thing. Is where we'll start.
Okay, well, I don't remember my birth, but I was born in Star Valley, Wyoming, little tiny town called Bedford. I wasn't. That's where I grew up. Was in Bedford. I was born in Afton, Wyoming. My whole family, both my father and my mother's side of the family, are from there. So, little tiny podunk area in Star Valley, Wyoming, is where I was born and raised until. Say, I went to kindergarten there, then moved to Garland, Utah, and stayed there through high school. Went to Bear River High. After high school, I guess you want to like the whole story.
We'll just kind of, yeah, we'll hit on main points of kind
Okay.
of high school, if you had any struggles or if there were any, if you were more into athletics or if you're more into academic, like kind of what that life was
Yeah,
like.
I am not an academic
Okay.
type person. I I did tend to uh, lean pretty hard to athletic side of things. You know me from playing football. We played semi-pro football together, but I played football in high school and ended up playing a little bit in college as well. In high school, I also was a basketball player and then did track in the spring. So that's sports was a really important part of my life growing up. If I didn't have if I didn't have to keep a certain GPA for sports, I probably wouldn't have done well. I didn't do great in school anyway, but I probably would have done a lot worse.
No.
So uh, that whatever you want to call it, the need to have to keep a certain GPA to be able to play sports is one thing that motivated me to actually do my studies and be the academic as much as you could say I was.
Yeah.
So it was important. Sports were very important in my life growing up, for sure.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have that. Like in middle school, I did well in school because I kind of switched friend groups. So I focused on school
Mm-hmm.
and did well. And then when high school came, I get slacked. But it was like that incentive of I need to make grades to be able to play my sports.
Mm-hmm.
Kept it so that I made sure I went to class as much as I needed to get my grades and everything like that. But same kind of thing. I was like, I'm not great at this athletic or this academic stuff. I'll just get the grades I need. And
Yeah,
then,
it was. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed school, but it was more for the companionship, the camaraderie, the your buddies and whatnot. That was the only reason I really liked going to school. But then school offered the athletic side of things as well, where you could be an athlete and play your sports and do the things you loved. School was just a pathway for that in my mind.
yeah,
At one point in life, I thought for sure I was going to be a professional football player, like
everybody does.
every kid thinks, And so, like when I was in high school, I never really got into drinking or smoking or any of that stuff because I knew that if I wanted to be a professional athlete, I couldn't do that stuff. And then a little bit as I got a little bit older, religious side of things kind of took over, and that helped me keep that momentum, staying drug and alcohol free.
Yeah.
So those are the type of athletics were the first thing that kept me going, and that started me going in that path type of thing.
Yeah. And I think too with religion too, when it keep kids away from that, that's one thing that I really like about religion is it keeps kids on that better pathway and it keeps them away from those things. And when people don't have that kind of structure, they will fall more towards those things because it's not frowned upon for them. They don't
Yeah.
have a.
Well, humans are we're kind of pack animals, right? And life is a team sport.
Yeah.
And you want to be a part of a team. And if you don't have that structure, like you're saying, from the family or the religious side of things, you're gonna find it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And you're gonna do what the rest of the team is doing eventually.
Yeah.
So religion is good for that aspect of things, helping you stay on a straight and narrow path, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And so then you got done with high school and you said you went and played college ball. Where'd you go play?
I played at Snow College. I went there for 1 year. I redshirted, and then I went on my a mission with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Thinking I was going to play ball when I got back. So I played tight end in high school, and in college I went to Snow to play there, and ended up redshirting. And then when I came back, I thought, I can still do this, and didn't really want to go back down to Snow because it was such a small community. So I went up and talked to the coaching staff at Utah State, and I went and talked to the tight ends coach, and I went into his office and sat down with him and said, "Hey, I'd really like to play," and I said, "My name's Kody Merritt," and he's like, "Oh, I know who you are." So I had a bit of a reputation. Plus, the people that were playing on the team I played with and against in high school, like the Fia brothers, and all those guys were part of the Utah State Aggies at the time. And I thought it was something I really liked to do. But he's like, "Yeah, we're in summer ball right now. You come out tomorrow." And I'm like, "Oh," like it was a big shock, and I wasn't ready to jump into it right then. I kind of lost that. I don't even call it the drive or that ambition to make that the only focus in my life type of thing.
Yeah.
And college football, that's what it is. Like in high school, it's fun. It's a sport. You get out a good time, but in college, it's more of a business to me. And it felt like it didn't matter who you were, because if you got hurt, the other person that's right behind you is just as good. You go to high school, you might be the man, right? But in college, everybody was the man in high school.
Yeah.
So the person that's behind you is probably just as good, maybe better, just needs a chance.
Yeah.
You know? So I really felt like it wasn't as fun anymore. It was more of a business type thing. And I didn't have that drive anymore. So I kind of went away from football at the time, and ended up getting married at a pretty young age. I guess I'd have been 23. I got married to my first wife, and we moved to Salt Lake, and I worked for her cousin's husband, he's the one that actually got me into arm wrestling way back when.
Oh, okay.
But worked for him as a salesperson in a multimedia type industry, doing like videotapes, VHSs back in the day. I'm aging myself now.
Yeah.
And we eventually went into like CDs and DVDs, and then that industry kind of, I had stepped away and started my own business, and my clientele kind of just disappeared on me. So I was sitting there, married with a daughter, and had no income coming in because all my clients were no longer around type of thing. The industry just kind of went away. It progressed, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy who I had started playing semi-pro football in Salt Lake just to play because it was fun again, right? A bunch of friends I played with, and one of the guys on the team that I played on down there worked at the prison and said, "Hey, we're always hiring, and we pay for like schooling, college and stuff like that." And I thought, well, it's something I can at least go get a job and have a decent job at the prison, working as a correctional officer there.
Yep.
And have my school paid for. Well, I applied for that, and they offered me a job, and I went to the police academy, the correctional officer academy, and halfway through that, I got offered a job in adult probation and parole. Never actually really had to work at the prison as a full-time correctional officer. Ended up going into probation and parole, and within a year I had promoted to an agent or a probation officer, and I actually still am working in probation and parole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've got I'll have 19 years in May.
Okay.
And I'll be eligible for retirement at 20 years is what the state retirement is. My beautiful wife doesn't want me to retire. She thinks I need the insurance.
Yeah.
Because I tend to hurt myself a lot.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of the track I went through my life. And so I started arm wrestling actually before I became a correctional officer, but then I went away from arm wrestling I guess I got to back up. I got a divorce from my first wife. And I kind of went away from all sports, arm wrestling and football and everything. I kind of left it behind until I got divorced. And then I moved up here to northern Utah, back to Tremont area again. And then I started playing football again and got involved with the team you were on with the Stampede, and which was a blast. Love that. And then did that for a couple of years and met my new wife, and we got married, and then we were watching TV in 2015, I think it was, and there was some arm wrestling on ESPN, and the people that were arm wrestling there, like the people that were going for first and second, I had beaten the guy that was in the championship before I had retired.
Oh, okay.
And they're paying $20,000 for first and $10,000 for second place. I'm thinking, that's my money.
Yeah.
I could be winning that money. And so I asked Jolene, my wife, if she minded if I started training for arm wrestling, and she said sure. And so that's kind of where arm wrestling took off again. As the September-ish of 2015, I got back into it after like a 9.5 year hiatus or retirement or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started arm wrestling about 27 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So, but then got into my career in law enforcement as a probation and parole officer, and that provides a paycheck because arm wrestling doesn't really pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it does give us a lot of opportunities. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
Yeah.
Is that a good enough explanation?
Yeah. No, that's a great start. And we'll kind of back up, and we'll go to when you were going to that job in the prison and you kind of lost that income. Was there anything like, because that's a stressful time when you're married and have a kid and not having that income come in, and then obviously that's got to be stressful. Like, was there things you were doing at that time that you were kind of like that made you be like, I have to take this job so that I can provide, or was there like,
well, yeah,
what do you do to deal with that?
I was looking for. I had a couple different job opportunities at the time. The buddy was telling me about the prison, and I had applied for that, and they had offered me a job. And then I also had another buddy who worked in insurance, and he had offered me a job also in insurance, and I was kind of weighing out the pros and cons between the both of them. But I knew that the prison job had a pension.
Yeah.
Which was a really good security option, and their insurance for the state, working for the state, you get a really good insurance plan. And my ex-wife and I, we had gone, when I had my own business, I didn't have insurance for, I'll bet 5 years we didn't have any insurance. We got super lucky. Like, we didn't have any real injuries. My daughter didn't have any real bad complications. We had to go in for one procedure with her, but like, just things happen to work out, I think, when you're living right. And the hospital basically waived the cost of that. And yeah, there were stressful times for sure.
Yeah.
And being the man of the house, you feel like you've got to step up and do what it takes to provide for your family. And so I ended up taking the prison job for the job security, the insurance, and a really good retirement.
Yeah.
But that was also around the time that my ex-wife and I, we were really struggling, and we weren't getting along really well. And it's, a lot of people think that divorce is, it's because of this or that. Like, usually people say, well, it's his or her, like they'll blame it on something. Well, I don't think that's what divorce, I think divorce is a failure for the both of you to work with things. And I know that I was as much to blame in the divorce as she was. And there was nothing that happened. Like she's an amazing mother. She's an amazing person. We just didn't work good together.
Yeah.
Right. And, looking back in the situation I am now with my current wife, and it was the best choice I ever could have made.
Yeah.
And for her too, she's in a happy marriage and a great relationship. And you just sometimes wish you could see a glimpse of how things would work out and make decisions so much easier. Right?
Yeah.
But hindsight's 2020, and looking back, it was the best decision that both of us ever could have made.
Yeah. And I think that there's a stigmatism, like you said, that they want to put blame on one person or another in divorce, and it's like it's not. It's
or a reason.
Or a reason.
He or she must have been unfaithful. It wasn't nothing like that.
Yeah.
We just didn't work well together.
And sometimes you don't grow, especially when you get married younger, because you said you were like 23.
23, and
she was probably like,
she was 5 years younger than me. She was 18.
Yeah.
Just barely turned 18 when we got married. So
yeah. So when you're young and you're not fully grown, and like, because really you aren't fully developed till you're 26 and everything like that. And it's just like when you get on that pathway, it's 5 years down the road, you can see that you're just different people, and you're not. If you had that, you can sometimes people fight it. And they're like, well, we'll just fight it out for the kids, or
that's exactly right.
And they do that, and then it's just, like you said, if you had a crystal ball and you could see in the future that, like, if you split and the way you guys could head and the way your lives could be, how much better it would be, and that instead of dragging that out for years, because with me being a part of that with my parents, like, they drug out a bad marriage for 10, 15 years with us kids, and it's like, was it? They might have thought it was the right choice, but was it? Like, you can, as a kid, you can tell when things are bad, and you can tell all of that. And it's like, sometimes I think they just need to sit down and think about those things. And like, we are heading in the right direction. It's not a bad thing. Like, it happens. It's not. I think the stigmatism's just like, and it's nobody's fault. There's no reason to have to go that way of somebody did something. Just figure out your life and kind of where you're heading. If it's not, then it can be better just to make that adjustment.
But that, I agree 100%. And I would never wish divorce on my worst enemy. It sucks, right? Just going through the whole process, it's not a pleasant experience. But like I said, it was by far the best option. Looking back at it now, it was by far the best thing we could have done.
Yeah. And I see so many people that I know that after they've gotten married, again, it's just like when you're older and have it figured out, it's like you find somebody that fits better, And so,
well, now I'm gonna brag on my wife a little bit here. Like, my first wife and I, that you get to a point where you don't even want to come home because there's going to be arguing and bickering, and like I say, that's on both sides. But then you're not coming home, and that's making more contention because you're not around. You're shirking your duties as a father. She's with the child all the time. You're avoiding the situation because you don't want to have the confrontations. When I met Jolene, and we got married really quick. Like, we met in February, we were engaged in March, and married in August. Like, it was super fast. And we've been married for 14 years now. 14 years, and I can't even think of one time we've had an argument.
Yeah.
Like, where we've really, like, yelled at each other. I don't think it's ever happened. Well, there's times when you get a little disappointed and upset, but she understands. She's like probably the most supportive human being on earth, because there's a lot of things that I've gone through health wise, and traveling for arm wrestling or working late hours as a police officer, just a lot of things that she just, I call her, hey, I've got to do this. And she's like, okay. Like, she's very supportive and very understanding. I've got coworkers where their wife's like, no, you've got to come home. Like, I can't.
Yeah, that's not how this works.
It doesn't work that way. And they have fights over that. And never had an issue with Joey. She's been amazing. And when you find that fit, or that person that is that better fit, it's a whole different story for sure.
Yeah. I think people should consider that sometimes, not just that for them, but for you as well, that if somebody's that supportive, that you should be as supportive back too. And I think some people
shut your mouth.
You get well, I'm just saying that, like, sometimes they get a little one-sided and they don't look at it from the other direction as much sometimes, and so then that's when the finger pointing comes out in relationships. When they start to go south, it's like, well, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, they didn't. It's like, but what didn't you do?
Exactly.
What did you miss?
Exactly.
Like, it's a two-way street there. You got to.
And we as humans tend to do that stuff all the time. We try to put blame, to take blame off of her. Like, we don't want the heat, right? So we got to put it somewhere else. And so we'll try to find reasons to target or push that negative energy onto something else, when all reality, it's probably something we have to change.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's what are you doing in the situation that that could make that a whole different outcome, for sure.
Yeah. Because, obviously I went through a divorce a little while ago and everything like that. And a lot of people want to put that blame. And it's like, we were terrible, especially the last few years. Like, we both did terrible things to each other. And it was a bad situation. And now when I talk about it, when people ask them, it's like, I'm not putting any blame on her. I'm like, we both did these things and we both, and I'm like, and so when I don't like to talk, I'm like, I'm not going to talk about these things. I'm not going to do that. Like, that was what we did to each other and what happened and everything like that.
That doesn't make you putting her down or putting blame on her doesn't help in any way whatsoever.
It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't change anything. It's like, what happened. And so, like, I just, like, I'd stay. I'm like, it wasn't working. And, it had to go separate ways. And the hardest part for me was the kids thing. Like, that was hard for me because I was like, in my mind, I'm like, that's why it took so long to do. I'm like, I don't want to be a part-time dad. That's what I felt like and things like that. And I think it's harder, but when you realize that you can be a better dad during that time, if you're happy and you have these other things.
So. Yeah, I had the fear of that same thing. Like, my daughter Hayden, because I just have the one child.
Yeah.
And just the thought of not being there, like on Christmas mornings or for birthday mornings it just killed me to think about that, because my whole life I wanted to be a father, right? I wanted to be that person that my parents got divorced when I was young, and my dad was never around because they were divorced. They lived in different states. So I didn't want her to be in that situation. So that was one of the things that made me stay in the situation. And you don't want to be an absent dad. You want to be there, but sometimes you can be the better dad, right? Like you said, if you're a few miles away.
Yep.
For sure.
Happy life, and then not only that, but putting that bad example, like I was saying earlier, of how a relationship works. Because one of the things that I realized is, as a child man, like that, the relationships I'd seen in my family, like, a lot of them weren't healthy relationships. Like, and so, like, when I became an adult, like, I didn't ever want to get married. I didn't want to do those things because I'm like, for the most part, a lot of the marriages I've seen, they're not good. Like, there were a lot of negative things, and they were always fighting and doing all these things. And I'm like, I never wanted a part of it because I was like, that's how marriage is. Like, and so it's
kind of a negative situation you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
But if that's the way you see a lot of it, I mean, you get that impression. If, like, you grew up in a broken marriage as well, and you kind of see that growing up, and you don't want to be in that same situation.
Yeah.
But when you, like you say, when you get more mature and you learn, it's not marriage, it's the situation, it's the way you're treating each other. And for sure. Yeah,
when you learn that, no, marriage can be a great thing if it's the right fit and you guys support each other and and have that love for each other, then it's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then we'll go into, so when you got started working, you said you worked at the prison, so you just kind of were there part-time going to school, or you never actually worked there?
Never actually. I went to the police. So when you hire on a job in law enforcement, you have to go through a police academy.
Yeah.
And when you're working at the prison, you have to go through what's called a correctional officer academy, a SEAL academy. So when you hire on, you go to the work there. And so you're getting paid to go to police academy.
Okay.
And that's 3 months long. Well, while you're being trained on how to be a correctional officer, we had a person come in from adult probation and parole and kind of explain what probation and parole is. I had never even heard of AP&P, adult probation.
Yeah.
And they asked if anybody was interested in being an AP&P, and I didn't know what it was. But the leader of our class, they're called our TAC, he had come to me and said, I think you'd be a good fit in this. You should look into it. And so I sent an email to the lady. It was like 2 sentences. Hey, keep me in mind. I'd be interested in doing this. I don't even remember what it said, but it was super short.
Yeah.
And she came back like 2 weeks prior to me graduating from the academy and offered me a job in probation and parole. So I never actually had to go to the prison and work.
Yeah.
Now we have to go there and work overtime shifts, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
So I went, instead of working at the prison, moved right into adult probation and parole as a correctional officer, and helping with people that are out on the street instead of being incarcerated. So,
Okay.
So yeah, that's how I got started in probation and parole. And then, like I said, within a year of being hired, I had promoted to what I am now, an agent or a probation and parole officer, not a correctional officer. I'm actually now, I had to go back to another police academy to do law enforcement certification. And so I did that with just under a year after I was hired, and moved to Logan, and because I was living in Murray at the time.
Okay.
And then I moved back up here and got a job here in Logan, and that's what got me here.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, if you've been there for 19 years, there's enjoyments that you get from it and some sort of fulfillment, I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, I'd much rather be hunting or fishing or shooting.
Yeah.
But I've got a good job. So over the 19 years, I've gone through some ups and downs. At one point, I didn't get along really well with my supervisor. I ended up getting demoted back down to a correctional officer. I had to move jobs to Ogden, so I was getting paid less, had to commute to Ogden to work there, and I did that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and then promoted back again to the spot I am again. So yeah, you go through these ups and downs, but two things that kept me going is, one, it's a 20-year pension. I get paid not having to go to work when I hit that 20-year mark.
Yeah.
That's one big motivating factor, but I love the idea that I am able to help in some way correct somebody's life. That I'm the one correcting it, but being there as a support system while they make the appropriate changes and to better themselves.
Yeah.
I like being a part of that. I hate arresting people. I hate the cop side of my job. Shouldn't say I hate it. I dislike it.
Yeah.
I would much rather be there to talk to the person and, help them along the way than put them in cuffs. I'm not a big fan of arresting people. It's never been my favorite part of my job.
Yeah.
But sometimes you've got to do what you got to do, right? You've got to keep the community safe. You've got to keep that individual safe.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of different things. I've different caseloads to supervise. You've got different types of clientele, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You've got people that are addicted to drugs, drug offenders. You've got people that are alcoholics that have too many DUIs. You've got sex offenders. There's a whole bunch of different routes you can go. I spent 7 years teaching classes to help people, kind of not necessarily as a therapist, but teaching these guys cognitive behavior type classes, helping them understand their thought process on why they're making the decisions they make, and continually to come back in that same circle.
Yeah.
You've seen people in your office for, there's people there now that when I started were there. So, 19, 20 years later, they're still in the system making these same mistakes. And these classes are trying to help them understand why they're doing that, their thought process, and what brings them to the decisions they make.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think I've been on the other side of the system.
Yeah.
I've been on probation, parole for a bunch of dumb things, and for the most part, my probation were all good. I mean, sometimes you do get a couple. I wouldn't call them bad, but they do. They like the power. They like that arresting. But for the most part, from what I've seen, a lot of them are like you're saying. They like to be there to help and to support and to show. And I would think that you get a little bit of fulfillment when somebody gets out of the system and stays out. When you see them 10 years down the road and they're doing great.
Or when they send you an email or a letter saying, thank you so much for being who you were, or whatever. Those are the things that I find very fulfilling.
Yeah.
To seeing them, There's a guy that I supervised, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago that my sister, he's now married to a gal that my sister was kind of the babysitter of her children. They've got a new kid together. He's an amazing stepdad. He's been drug free for, I don't know, 10 plus years, just doing really, really well. And those are the type of stories that you really like to see and hear about.
Yeah. Yeah. My last probation officer, he was hands down just a great guy. Like he literally, like when he'd call me for check-ins, it was like, do you need anything from me? Like, how's everything going? How
Mhm.
the like, how are they going? It was like he was like, do you need anything when other things were going south and some other court dates? Like, do you need anything with that? And I was just like, I didn't realize that that's kind of. And I think some people have a bad rap because they get somebody that's not that way,
Yeah.
and so
Well, you I don't know when I'm sure you spent a little bit of time in jail and stuff.
yeah,
You probably hear people talking about, oh, probation officers just want to, they want to get you in trouble. They're out to find everything you're doing wrong. I don't ever want to find you doing something wrong.
yeah,
My job gets 10 times harder when you're making mistakes and you're violating your probation. Then I got to do all this paperwork. It sucks.
yeah,
I would hope you never do anything wrong. So the idea that I'm out looking for you to screw up is not true. That's
yeah,
no probation officer wants their people to screw up because their job gets way harder.
yeah. And like you were saying that there are people that are still in there. So like,
Yeah.
I think and I don't say this lightly, that sometimes because when we're in jail, you call those kind of guys, you call them lifers. So we
Lifers,
call
yeah.
them because it's just like, and when you hear their stories, like they started getting in trouble at 10,
Mhm.
12. And it's like, so one guy that I was in, he was like 45. He'd been locked up for more than half of his birthdays, just over and
Yeah.
over. And I wonder if for them, because when they get there, it's like home. Like they
Mhm.
get in there, they know, oh, they just start shouting out names and everything like that. And I'm like, I wonder if it's the only structure they've ever had.
I think that I have got a story. It's not a story that I witnessed, but I have a friend who was a probation officer in St. And he told me this story. They had an individual that was on probation, and he was checking in regularly, just doing really well. This individual had a child that basically was his whole life. This little girl, I think it was a little girl. Anyway, one day this little girl was being dropped in the carpool from school. Well, when she closed the door, her backpack strap got stuck in the door. And this van drove off with her still attached to this backpack. Ended up dragging her. They didn't know she was there. They drug her from out. She died. She ended up dying. The news got back to probation and parole that this person died. The whole office tried finding this person because they knew that it was going to be devastating for this guy. They were out looking this all of St. George, just everywhere, trying to scour the city, trying to find this guy. They finally gave up and they came back and he was sitting in the lobby. And they said, we've been out looking for you. He's like, I had nowhere else to go. Like, sometimes probation and parole is the only structure they've ever had in their life. It's the only positive thing they've ever had to look forward to. And when this incident happened I get a little bit emotional about it myself, but when this incident happened with the kid's child, the only thing he could do is the only positive is his probation officer. He had to go and find the probation officer. I think that a lot of people don't realize that law enforcement, they aren't bad people.
Yeah.
They're really there to help. And there are the bad apples. I can't say everybody, but for the most part, that's really what our job is to help. And for, like you said, a lot of these individuals have never had a role model in their life. And sometimes their PO is the one that does that for them. So that's the kind of stuff I like about the job.
Yeah. I don't see how you couldn't get emotional fulfillment from that. It's just seeing people lean to that or fall in and kind of accept it and then move their lives in a better direction. But yeah, like I was saying, just that. And then I think that jail for them sometimes when they go back, there's like their home life was been a mess and they drugs and alcohol. And then they go back to these relationships with these same people. And it's just like they fall into that over and over again. And it's like they don't know how to get out of it sometimes. And they don't know what to do. And the classes to them just seem like they're not.
They take it times. They've been to the same treatment by a different name 100 different times. It's frustrating sometimes as a PO. Like addictions are tough, and I understand a little bit about addictions, but I don't understand. Like, I've never been addicted to drugs. I am to like cheese fries. But in my mind, like, I've asked classes and I've asked people that are out of jail, like, what's the number one thing you'd like to change in their life? And smoking cigarettes is like probably 90% of everybody's answers. I wish I wouldn't smoke. Then I would say, how long were you in jail? Oh, 6 months, 2 years, whatever. How many cigarettes? Oh, none. I didn't want them. But the day they get out of jail, they start smoking like crazy. I'm like, you just went 6 months, you went 2 years without having a cigarette. And now you like want to start smoking again? Like you're craving it all of a sudden? In my mind, that doesn't make a bit of sense.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the way they think. Like I shouldn't say, I don't understand those addictions, but a lot of people struggle with them, and it drives me crazy sometimes. Like, why are you struggling so hard with this type of thing? But I've never been addicted to drugs, so I can't answer to that, you know?
And I feel like it's just when they get back into that lifestyle, it's like when they get out, like that was their life in jail. Yeah. Now they're back out, and they just go, well, this is what I do. Yes, this is what I know. This is what I do.
Or they come out and they're like, all gung ho, I'm going to be good. I'm going to have a job. I'm going to do everything right. And then they get the first 100 doors slammed in their face. Oh, I'm not going to hire a felon. I'm not going to, you're a sex offender. I can't have you working here, whatever. Yeah. And then they think, well, I could make way more money selling drugs. Yeah. I used to do this all the time. I need money. I got to do this. And it's sometimes I think the system, the correctional system, we kind of set them up to fail sometimes. Yeah. But then also if you're looking at the normal citizen, they have this stigmatism about, well, he's a felon. He must have like murdered 28 guys and raped 16 women and buried children alive somewhere. You know what I mean? They think they're just these evil people. Well, they're not. Yeah. They just need like a chance, but not many people are willing to give them that chance. Yeah. And I can understand like where they're coming from, but it's unfortunate that we send them back. We send them out in the street and say, okay, you've got $3,000 of fines, plus you got to pay supervision fees every month, and you got restitution for this, and I can't find a job, right? Yep. It's really tough sometimes for them. Oh, and then you got to go to treatment and pay for treatment and all your classes and everything like that. Like it's an expensive process, and it's a time-consuming process on top of that. So you have to have not only do you have to have a work that pays you money, but you have to have a work that'll fit your schedule. Exactly. Of like I've got this class on Tuesday, I've got that class on Thursday. I got to report when the PO calls, I've got to go type of thing. And so a lot of people just don't want, because the only time, that's kind of how I got stuck into the construction industry, is because that's where a lot of us go and everything like that. Because I got my first time getting arrested, I was 18 years old. Like I was right out of high school after some felonies. So I ended up getting 2. They dropped all the others, but I got into construction right because it was something. People are hiring. They pay you good money, and they don't look at that. And the first time I got a door shut was when I decided I needed the same thing. I need some insurance and everything like that. I'm gonna have a kid on the way, and I went and applied at Thermo Fisher, and they had brought me in, and I checked on there that I was a felon and everything like that. I was like, okay, I checked it. They're not gonna bring me in if they saw that on my application. So I went in, did 3 interviews. They were gonna hire me on as a manager there and everything like that. I'm like, oh great. So I'm like getting ready to quit my other job, and then they're like, okay, well, we got the background check coming. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, and they didn't say anything about that check mark. And then, so I'm like, okay, well, like I checked it, like they should know. Yeah. And then they come back to me, and I was supposed to start in 4 days. And they're like, we can't hire you. Like, cause you're a felon. You have this theft on you. And I was like, well, yeah, I checked it and wrote on the thing. Like, why did you let me go through 3 interviews and do that? And I was like, so I was kind of like, shit, this is what's going to happen to me. So I just like, okay, I'll stay with construction. And I was just like, and I was, so to me, I was like, there's no opportunities. I can't do those things. And I
kind of dropped out of school because I went and played college ball and everything like that. And I was just like, oh, this is what I'm going to do now because I didn't want that. And it was like, it wasn't just the fact that it happened, but it just, for me, emotionally, I was just like, I can't handle that of being shut down over and over again for these things.
It's hard to but if you think back, like we've all had doors shut in our face.
Yeah.
But when like you're on, I got to pay these bills. I got these everything. It seems it's just a huge pressure that is like stacking on your shoulders, and I don't think it's fair. A lot of the times, I carry a sex offender caseload now. Like all of my people are sex offenders. They all have to do treatment. Their treatment is like a year and a half long. It's like $100 per. They have to pay weekly. They have to pay $100 per visit to go to this treatment. They have to do polygraph tests, 2 or 3. They're a couple $300 a go, and they have to do what's called a psychosexual evaluation. Just to have a psychosexual evaluation done is about $3,000. And these guys are coming out of prison or just out of jail, and a lot of them don't have jobs, and it's tough for them to even find work. And they have all this stuff stacked on them right now. And their probation is 3 years long, and a year and a half of it is in treatment, and you can't start treatment until you've got a $3,000 assessment done. Like, it's ridiculous sometimes. And I just think, how are they going to succeed? But I mean, they do. Like, it's amazing what people can do. They're able to do it, especially when they kick that victim mentality aside and just start attacking it, dealing with their issues.
Yeah.
And that's what I really love to see, that stuff.
Yeah. And I think it's too, they have to have that acceptance of like, I mean, it sucks, and this stuff's not fun of doing these things. It's like, but you have to accept and take that responsibility that I did these things. I have to do that. And then like getting back to it and getting in the mindset of getting these classes done and realizing that you can still accomplish things. You know, it's your process can be a little bit longer, a little bit harder, but in the long run, it'll be better if you can get to that. But for some people, I just think it's too much for them. They don't, and that's the thing that I talk about on here is different coping ways to cope with these emotions and these feelings of like I said, when I had that happen, I was like, I don't want to. I already felt like shit for the things I'd done and felt really stupid. I was 8. I was straight out of high school, 18, doing dumb stuff, and I was like, that's how people look at me, and that's what I thought. Like, people think that about me, and people think these things, and it's like, yeah, I did some bad shit, and it was dumb, and it was everything like that. But for me, I'm like, I don't see me as a terrible person, but I felt like people looked at me like that and judged me like that.
And some people do. Yeah. That's the unfortunate part of life is we hear felon and we think that evil person that it's not. It's usually some young kid or some person that's just made a really poor choice, and they've got to deal with that choice the rest of their life. It's unfortunate, and I think society needs to recognize that it's really not it's not that stigmatism of who's the or what they've done and how bad of people they are. It's these are good people that just made poor choices. Brandon, I could honestly tell you that 2 or 3 choices when I was a kid, I could have been on the other side of the boat, right? Like, easily could have done something wrong that put me as a felon. There's a ton of different situations that happened where I could have been, 1 or 2 choices away from being that other guy. And there's no way I can like look at them and say, you're a bad person, because I was doing the same stupid things. Just maybe not as much or as entailed or whatever. So, it's really hard when I hear people in probation or parole that are in this job that think that these people, like, I've heard them say that they don't want to use the same restaurants as offenders are using. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, are they all of a sudden just like lower human beings than you? It frustrates the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Because they could be there too,
Yeah. And too, I was talking about those kids that get started with young and stuff. It's like they're role models. Mm-hmm. Their brothers, their parents, like that's what they grew up with. That's what they saw happening. And a lot of the kids, because like, I mean, I'm from Logan, but we're that area of Logan, which some people don't. But I'm like, a lot of these kids that I went to elementary school, like I'd say 50% of us all went to jail at some point. And really? a lot of us still A lot of them still are going in and out, but that's how they grew up. That's how their life was. They had zero structure. They had zero support. Like their parents didn't get them into sports. They didn't get them. It's like they didn't have these positive things to, and they didn't have a reason to keep grades. They had a reason to go to school and do these things, and they just got kind of sucked into that lifestyle with their parents, their friends, their brothers, and I mean, a lot of them had older brothers. That's what, like, they were teaching us shit from their older brothers in elementary school. We're learning how to roll joints, how to chop pills when we're in elementary school from their older brothers. And I'm like, now I think about it, I'm like, that's a rough life to grow up seeing that, and then they don't know how to get out of it. Now they just get back into that same friend group
because it's what they know.
That's what they know, and that's what they're comfortable with. It's like
you'd mentioned that some of these guys start when they're kids. I've heard stories of people getting high at age 9, drinking alcohol even before that, getting drunk. In my mind it just is unbelievable. I can't picture that. Like my daughter's 24 now, and I think just the idea of her like even drinking alcohol, I would like just I couldn't see it happen. But I mean, it just blows my mind that this happens to certain people, and sometimes it's brought on by parents or older siblings, and it's really unfortunate. It really is.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's hard to tell these people, like, you got to figure out a different way. Like, and like I think too that where they, like I said, that coping is like when they have all these feelings and these emotions, they don't know what else to do to numb it and to get away, and they're like, I can smoke something, I can snort something, I can drink. Those things numb it and take it away, and it's like they don't know any other way.
I've always found it kind of interesting that I'll ask somebody that had come back on some sort of a or drug violation, and they'll say, "Well, yeah, I got a promotion at work, so I wanted to celebrate." And then you'll hear like 4 or 5 months later, "Oh, my father died, so I needed to take something." It's the same exact thing. Like they're using the same drug to celebrate and to mourn the death of their father. Like, like that doesn't make sense. Like, why are we going to do the exact same thing for two completely different, ends of the emotion? And I told you that I taught classes for about 7 years in this job. And I learned one thing that I thought was very interesting. If you look at like a pie chart and you divide your life into a pie, like in slices, and you got like your family life there, and your work takes up this much time, then you ask these addicts that are addicted to drugs, like how much of that pie chart is drug related? And a lot of them say like it covers even their family and their job. It takes even all that space. Well, if you want to take that out of your life, take that addiction out of your life, and that pie chart's got a big chunk of open space, it's got to be filled. And if you don't find something to fill it with, that addiction's going to come back in and fill it itself. So you've got to keep your pie chart full, and like you said, you've got to find another way, something different. And if it's not drugs, you've got to find something that's going to give you that natural high or that buzz to move forward.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, it's different for every person. But you're right, you've got to find something different, because if you keep barking up the same tree, you're going to get the same pine.
Yep. Yeah, because I struggled with alcohol. I mean, I didn't start until I was like 18, but then it got to the point where I was what I call a functioning alcoholic. I was drinking every night, like a fifth, and that's what I do. I'd get home and I drank and I write that. And so then when I stepped away from it, I'm like, I've got to. And I always still went to the gym and everything like that, because that was what I said was coping. But sometimes I'd leave the gym and I was thinking that was my therapy. That's what was helping me, was the gym. But then I'd leave more angry or more upset. It's like, it's not therapy for me if it's not helping.
Fixing it.
If you're coming out feeling worse, and that's why I tell people, you got to figure out what helps it.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing something that you think's helping, and when you get done with that, it didn't do anything or it made it worse, that's not it. Find that thing that helps you do that, and that helps you get away from that negative coping mechanism. And like it's different for every person, like you said. Like some people that I've talked to on here, it's like, for me, it's getting out in the mountains. Like for somebody, or going to the gym now. If I leave the gym and I'm more pissed than when I got there, I realize I've got some things I got to do. And so and I go to therapy and everything like that and talk of different ways that I can approach these. That we have that stigmatism, especially as males, that you don't talk to these people,
Yeah.
especially about those feelings.
You're not going to open up to that.
Yeah, these feelings of regret or these feelings that you feel that like you feel weak when you do it. It's like, no, everybody has something that they struggle with. I don't think there's a person I know that doesn't have some sort of the word's not coming to me, but in your head that you feel bad about.
Some
about
kind
yourself,
of struggle or regret.
some sort of struggle or regret that like somebody has. And then everybody just has a different way. And some people are able to brush it off easier. Some people just aren't.
Yeah.
But
other people like let it build up until it explodes. And I'm not that type of person, but you're right. I tend to not let things get to me. And then eventually something's going to just be that right button that's going to make me break down in some way or another. And like I said, I get a little bit emotional about things, and I'm not embarrassed to cry, although I do feel kind of weak when I do, because, a grown man not supposed to, especially someone that has accomplished the things that I've accomplished in life. I shouldn't be crying about something, like a song that I hear that reminds me of my daughter or something like that. It sucks, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah. And being able to show that, like, for me, like, strong dude, like, it's like some people are like, they don't have those kind of feelings. It's like, there's songs that hit me sometimes, and I'm just like, get together.
Right. I told you, it happens all the time. And my wife, I think she wonders sometimes what kind of a sissy she married.
But I just think that it's that stigmatism there too, that not happen. But are there something you notice? When you have some of your clientele, or you see them going towards a bad route sometimes? Is there something you can kind of be like, or something happens? Are there similarities that you're kind of like, oh, I think this might start going south?
Well, so like I said, now I'm supervising sex offenders, and they're a whole different creature than a normal probation officer. Most of the time, sex offenders, it's the only time they've ever had anything happen and go wrong in the law. Whereas if you have a drug, had multiple issues, right? It's happened for years. So with sex offenders, it's a different thing. But when I was supervising the majority of the rest of the population that's on probation, yeah, like a relapse isn't when you take that next hit. It's, well, maybe I'll drive down that street where, what's his name used to be. Oh, he's there. Let's stop and say hi. The relapse right there. When you're making yourself open to that old routine. When you start thinking, driving by and saying hi is not that big a deal, which down the road, that leads to, well, let's sit and hang out for a minute, and he kicks out a joint or some pills or whatever. And you want some of this? Oh, I shouldn't. But 4 or 5 times down the road, you will say yes. That's the reason when you start making those decisions way before the actual intake of the substance, and you can see that happening in their lives when they start, and those that are honest with themselves, they can see it as well. And they've got to understand that there are certain things that are triggers, and that one street is a trigger. You can't go down it, right? You got to stay away from it. And I think that's the main thing. As it's a lot of people can hide it. Well, they've been doing it for years, right? So, like, they know how to get away with stuff that we never, probation officers. But on occasion, you will find them doing something, and you just think, what's going on there? And if they're honest with themselves and you, then you can get them to open up and talk about it, and then we can fix the issue. And I try to tell them all that. I'm like, listen, let's tackle this right now. Let's beat it right now so that you don't have to have this issue when it's too late. Let's work on it now. It is a violation, but there's 2 types of ways we can handle this violation. I can write the judge saying, hey, Brandon came in and talked to me. He was honest about this. He really wants to fix it. This is what we're going to do to fix it. Or Brandon was lying to me. I found him high at his apartment or whatever. He's not taking probation serious. I think he needs to be back in jail. There's 2 different ways that can take that same exact violation. If you're smart as an offender and you're thinking about it, we can work through this and fix it before it gets way out of hand.
Yeah.
And seeing that process work is what I really enjoy about the job.
Yeah. And when you were saying earlier too about them going down the wrong street and stuff like that, it's hard for them to cut those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they don't want to do that. It's somebody they've known for 10, 15 years.
It's my friend.
And it's a comfort thing. And it's like walking away from that and cutting those negative relationships and getting away from it. Luckily, because I have been sober from drinking for over 3 years now. And luckily, when I walked away and everything like that, there weren't a lot of relationships I had to cut for that. And a lot of my family who used to drink and everything like that, they'd all stopped. So it was a lot easier for me because the people I hung out with and the people that were there for me in my support group didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it really difficult when the people you turn to, that's what they do, and everything like that. And they don't know how to cut that relationship, and then I don't think they want to make other relationships.
Well, they think that these people are their friends. They've been my friends since we were 14. Well, what kind of a friend gives you drugs when you know you're trying to be straight, right? And,
no.
But you were lucky to have a really good support system around you, and that's really what it comes down to. If you've got the support system that's going to help you make those good choices, the appropriate choices, you'll be way more successful than if you didn't.
Yeah, and that's what I talk about. I'm like, getting that support. If you don't have that support, especially if it's in your own household, like if you're going home and there are people like you can't have.
You got to get away.
You got to get away from it, and it's probably going to hurt. But if you find the better support system or better people that are going to be there on that right path, it'll be life changing
for sure. I agree.
And so then we'll talk kind of. There are some things wrong with the system and like that. Like, is there something you would say like that could be better about it? Like, is there something specifically like that they could change? Like, I know it's that's the hard thing is like, what do you change? Like, how do you lean that? I didn't know if maybe from your perspective there was something.
It's hard because I see both perspectives. Like, because I deal with the offender and the struggles they have, but then there was a victim involved, and that victim needs restitution and needs to be made right as well. And who's responsible for that? The offender is, but it's hard to say, how do we fix this when it's somebody's choice that made the issue, right?
Yeah.
We were in Turkey 2018. No, yeah, it was 2018. And we were we went down to what they call a bazaar. It's like their big sales stuff. Like they just have these street vendors all the way down the street. We went to down this street. It's down this hill, winding road, old like ancient road, cobblestone road that goes down to the ocean, and it's been used since before Christ, all that stuff. Anyway, there's about halfway down this road, there's this little vendor booth there, and I watched a guy with no legs. Did he have both arms or just one arm?
One, but the other one was deformed.
Yeah. So 1.5 arms, and he's hobbling himself down this road, opens up this booth so he can make a living. And one of the guys that I'm with there, he's like, I really feel bad for that guy. In the U.S., he wouldn't have to do that. I'm like, yeah. And he is doing it. It made me realize that this guy in the U.S. probably would have been taken care of and babied and victimized his whole life and lived that, I can't do it because of this, and this. But in a country like Turkey, where if he doesn't, he's not going to eat. He goes to work every day and he provides for himself and maybe has family. I don't know. But I was amazed at what he could do with the limited abilities he had. And I think about how we fix issues here in the U.S. We tend to like throw money at it. Oh, government will pay for it. Oh, we can do it. When the person making the decision needs to deal with the consequences of their decision, right? So do we fix it by throwing money at them and babying them, or do they just need to suck it up? I see both sides of that, and it's tough sometimes to know which is the right way. And if we knew the right way there, we wouldn't have these issues.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's, obviously the system isn't perfect, and And sometimes I feel like we set them up to fail, but how else are they going to take responsibility for the decisions they made?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that,
Yeah.
Brandon. I wish I did.
No, yeah, that's why I just didn't know if there was something like that. And another thing that I noticed is like in these classes and everything like that, the attitude that the people have, you can kind of see the attitude people have coming into a class, and in the class, like some of them are like, "Fuck this!"
Yeah,
Like I don't want to be here. Like this is, and it's just like in my last couple classes I had to take, there were some that I was like, "This is a great class. Like we should offer something like a relationship on these on getting in and out of and understanding the way your relationship was working, and not just with spouses but with other people and everything like that, and talking about these ways of recognizing those things. I'm like, this is a great class. Like it, and but the people's attitude towards it, I'm like, well, if you go into it like, I don't want to be here. Like I'm just doing this to check it off. It's like if you go in there and actually want to hear this stuff and learn it, there's some great tools in there to use, and a lot of people they don't use it that way. They don't see it that way. They're like, I'm just checking a box. It's like if you realize it's there for a reason, and you kind of open yourself to learning about it, it's like there's some great things in there that you can use.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said their attitude is poor. One of my all-time favorite quote is, the problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. So no matter what type of a situation you're dealing with, it's how you approach that situation that's going to make or break it, right? And that quote actually comes from what's his name? From Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain
Jack Sparrow.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Okay, yeah.
That's one of his lines.
Yeah,
but it's so real. Like if you've heard the "don't make a mountain out of a molehill."
Yeah,
that's the same thing. Why make this problem so big in your head? And if you go into these classes with a poor attitude, the class is going to suck, right? Or if you get out of bed and think today's going to be a terrible day, you're right. Or you get out the same day, oh, it's going to be an awesome day, you're right.
No.
It's really the attitude you push in life. And I think that a lot of these people that are, people in general, it doesn't have to be vendors, it could be anybody. If they have a poor attitude about something, that experience probably is going to not be very good. Have you ever walked into a room where there's somebody that's really negative? It like just sucks energy out of you, right? And you don't even want to be there.
Yeah.
But if you go into that same room and there's a person that's like just full of energy and positive, you just love to be around them. It's really the attitude that person brings to the situation that makes it. And so I think for sure, attitude is everything in life, in every which way.
Yeah. Yeah, your mindset going into things and dealing with things. And that's one major change I've noticed throughout these past 3 years of stepping away from all those negative coping mechanisms is also the way I look at situations. I used to always be like, oh, dude, I just have the worst luck with things like when things start to happen, I was like Murphy's Law, or something. But my attitude was always when it would happen, I'd get so frustrated. I'm like, why? Like, why is this happening? Why do I have this bad luck? And now when something happens, okay, instead of going, well, bad luck, it's like, okay, what do I do next? What do I do to fix this? And then the day is better after that. It's like when something bad happens now, I don't spiral and I don't go, I need a drink. Like I'm able to kind of look at the problem and detach and be like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And where do I go? Like, yeah, this happened, it sucked. And I don't dwell on it as much of like, that's just my luck. There's Murphy's Law again. And I think being able to do that, to teach people that like, yeah, it's stupid. It sounds dumb, but it's in your mind. It's your attitude. You need to change it. But you need to change it.
Yeah. My wife will bear witness to this. That something happened. Like I always say, like if something happens, it's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Like if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. And it is. It's just an attitude that I have, but it's not actual. Like you're not really cursed. It just your mindset believes it, and that's how it works. And you pointed out something that I deal with every day. So yeah.
And how do you when that happens though? When you say something bad and then something happens, what's your mental process after that? Is it
I
is it
got to deal with it?
Yeah.
You just deal with it and move forward. You can't quit, right?
Yeah.
You can't give up. so just you deal with it and move forward.
No. And so then when you're in probation and everything, and then you got back into arm wrestling, other than seeing these guys compete and you're like 10, oh, I beat that guy. Like I could see that being a big driver, but what was kind of like, was it something that you needed the competitiveness? Because that's something I miss is about competing and right there. I'm like, I kind of miss that competitiveness and having something to work for. Is that something you went towards? Or
so when I first started, when I started arm wrestling 27 years ago, I didn't even realize it was like a sport.
No.
Like in high school, in middle school, we had a competition every year. We had an arm wrestling competition every year. And come to find out, the guy that, like my third grade math teacher, was a competitive arm wrestler. Like looking back, I realize this now. But I was always good at it when I was young. Naturally, I was a good arm wrestler. I understood different angles and whatnot. And when I met the guy who got me into it, his name's Robert Baxter. He's an amazing person, very positive person. Just love the guy to death. He's won like 7 world championships. He's 6 in a row. Like he's just an amazing person. And you would never in the world see him and think, oh, that guy's probably, strong at something. He looks like a librarian. Like he's just wears glasses. He's kind of like not like under and assuming. Is that the word I want to say? Like, he's just not what you would expect in a strong person sport. But I started arm wrestling with him. I worked with him for years. We started doing practices, and Utah's got a pretty good history of good arm wrestlers. Like people that are really good in arm wrestling, there's a lot of them that have come from Utah. Matter of fact, the one they call the GOAT, the greatest of all time, is a Utah person. So, you ever watch the movie Over the Top?
Yeah.
So that truck that they gave away in the movie, they actually gave that away in that Over the Top tournament. They had a tournament for that movie.
Oh, really?
And they gave it away to the winner, and his name was John. Was 18 years old when 18 or 19 when he won this full size diesel truck semi, and he still arm wrestles today. He's 60, almost 60 years old, and still killing people, right? Yeah. So I started training with these people that are really, really good, and I did okay. I was competitive, and I grew to love the sport. When I went through my divorce, I had to give up on things that we went through counseling, and she asked that I give up on some of these things, extracurricular things that took me away from the home. And so I stopped arm wrestling for, like I say, 9.5 years or so until I saw that on TV. But I do love to compete, and I like the recognition when I do well. Everybody does. Like they like to. You like to be a winner. It's just it's natural. And I've been fortunate enough to do very well in the sport. It's helped me a lot, and it's afforded my wife and I tons of opportunities. We've traveled the world competing on other people's bills because they fly you out for these events and feed you and house you and whatnot. It's an opportunity that we wouldn't have had otherwise. I've been all over the United States and a lot of different places in the world. It's just really been awesome. So people always say, like, I've had so many injuries from it. I've messed up shoulders. I've broken my arm. I've torn my bicep. I've done a ton of different things to my body. And every time I have these injuries, like people, are you done? I'm like, no. I don't think people understand that when you're at a certain level in a sport, like you're at this, I don't know how to say it, like, it's hard to give up something that you work so hard to achieve. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You just feel like I put all this work into it. And I've gotten to this level of success. Like, why would I let that hinder me?
Yeah.
And I want to go back to it.
Yeah. You like that feeling. The day that I'm not competitive is going to be a bad day for me.
Yeah.
I turned 50 this year. I'm an old man, right? And I don't heal like these young kids heal. And, I just keep thinking to myself, how much time do I have? And I want to get as much out of it as I can.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's a bit longer.
Yeah. And with the competitiveness of, because you said you played football and basketball, is there something you like more about arm wrestling? Because it's more in the team. Do you like it more or less than football and everything like that?
Well, I love football. I love the whole idea of football. Like, you know as well as I do, every person on that team has to do their job or you're not going to be successful. If you decide you're going to take a play off, that play's not going to work, right? You've got to do your job. In arm wrestling, it's you, right?
Yeah.
You have to do what you need to do to win, to be successful. And if you take a match off, you're going to lose that match. But there are some things that are similar, like football. There's strategy. You try to outsmart the other team by putting these schemes together to make you have better opportunities to win that game. And in arm wrestling, it's similar. You've got to put schemes together on different techniques that you can use to guy you're arm wrestling against, because I mean, nowadays you can find video on everybody. Like, you know what they're all doing, you know what they're good at. You can watch their video and critique their moves and put together a scheme on how you're going to beat them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that side of it. The understanding the sport, the movements of it, how a person moves at the table and how you can counter it or how you can get to somewhere before they get to their move type of thing. I really enjoy that part of it.
Yeah.
Plus, I like winning.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I don't understand, because, like, for me, I always thought, oh, arm wrestling is just strength. And then you learn all these strategies when you talk to somebody who's done it. Like I said, I talked to Brandon Allen, and Michelle Smart, when she'd come in and tell me these different things, I didn't realize all those things.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you're saying that you did that in middle school. We did the same thing in middle school. We had a teacher there. We had arm wrestling tournament, and I was tiny in middle school. I weighed 83 pounds. And I was 100 pounds in 8th grade, but like 6th or 7th grade, I think it was 7th grade, I beat everybody until I got to a kid that was just
a monster.
He was a grown man at 7th grade. The kid was 6'2"
Already
and 260 pounds, and I'm like, this kid literally is 2.5 of me, and I lost that one. But I was like, but then I learned that there are all these things. I'm like, that's funny that, like, you wouldn't think that there's these different pathways you can find, or different strategies, or different techniques.
So some people will tell you that a more technical arm wrestle will win. That's, if you guys are relatively the same strength, then yes. But it doesn't matter how good you are technically. If the dude is just a beast, strength-wise, it doesn't matter what technique you throw at him. You're not going to move them out of their power, right? So it is a strength sport. You want to be strong and you want to get stronger. But more technical person will beat a strong person on a regular basis, especially if they're relatively close in strength.
Yeah.
And you could crush somebody and only be a few percentages higher in strength than him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it looks like you dominated him because of the technique you used. But if that guy was just 2% stronger or 2% better at one other thing, then it could go a whole different way.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about it as well.
Yeah.
Plus, the people in the sport are awesome. Like, the community is really, really cool. You tell me another sport where you get on the table and this guy just destroys you. And then 5 minutes later, you're on the practice table and he's showing you exactly what he did, how to beat you. That doesn't happen in a lot of sports where your opponent is teaching you how to beat him.
Yeah.
And that's one thing we do. We're like that. We train with each other. We help each other. We want people to be better. And you want to beat people when they're their best. You want to win knowing that you are the better person, not just the healthier person that day.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic in arm wrestling. I don't think anybody's ever healthy. You're always hurting somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, with that, I was going to ask if there was a camaraderie in that group that makes it so much fun.
It's even good, like, where spouses have relationships because of the groups that get together. So you bring your significant other, and they've got friends, their significant others are, it's a great group for everybody. Families, even kids do it. It's awesome.
Yeah, because that's one of the reasons when I stepped into powerlifting that I lean more into it, because the community seemed at the time. It was the same thing where you go out there and these guys afterwards would tell you like their training ideas, their things like this, these things like because they wanted to help you get stronger. Because it's like the one time I beat this guy, and it was just because I was naturally stronger. But I talked to him about his programming and everything like that, and was telling him the things that I'd done. He was like, "Oh, that's okay." He's like, "I'll try this." And then I've had guys that have beat me significantly. I'm like, "Dude, what are you?" And they just want help. They're so friendly about it. They're like, "Well, what are you doing? What's your split like?" All these things, and like, "Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know." And I'm like, "That's a awesome thing." When I was in CrossFit, like those guys don't want to give out their secrets. They don't want. They're like, work harder, like, and you're not going to beat me next. Like,
we did CrossFit too for years, and I really enjoy it. So, but it is funny. You can get in gyms where they're really open about stuff, but I never did CrossFit competitively. I just did it because I liked the workout. Like I liked going to the gym and not having to worry about what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Someone already figured it out for me. That's one of my favorite things about CrossFit. But you're right. You've heard the statement, success breeds success. If you're successful, you want to bring people around you up as well. And even if that person is your opponent, but he's only your opponent when you're facing him across the table. The rest of the time, he's your buddy, right? He's your friend, and you want to see them better themselves. So that's the part I love about this competitive. And it sounds like it's very similar in powerlifting. I've never done that because I'm not very good at powerlifting. I'm not a very good gym guy, actually, but I love to arm wrestle. Yeah. So it's it sounds to me like you are probably a naturally good arm wrestler. You should come try it someday. Well, yeah, come to practice on a Thursday night.
I've thought about going in just for fun, just to like, I kind of want to see. I want to learn, hear these things.
You should come to practice. You're welcome anytime. Yeah. We have them Thursday nights at 6:30 at my place. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, I'll have to come by sometime.
Okay.
And when they talk about not getting somebody, it's like if they're being mean, Brandon Allen was saying, he's like, if somebody comes in and you're a newbie and the guy just destroys you, that guy's a dick.
Yeah, he like, really is.
He's like then they just ruin your sport for you. Yeah. They're like, I don't want to do this. No, it's like, but if you go into a good gym where somebody's like teaches you and shows you these things, I'm like,
because I'll be honest with you, you're probably going to be getting your butt kicked by everybody the first day you show up because you're just learning, right? And if they're just like trouncing you, you're not getting any out of it, and you feel like an idiot, and you're not going to come back. Yeah. So Brandon's right. If they're just beating up on you, they're being a dick.
Yeah.
So you really want to find a good club that's going to work with you and help you and like practice wins. People always like, oh, I beat this person in practice. I could be bull crap. Everybody loses in practice. You're out there training. You're trying to get better. You're working your weaknesses. So you might lose to somebody at a practice that you would normally just crush in an event because you're working on your weaknesses. You're trying to get stronger. Or you've arm wrestled 10 other guys and you're toast, and this guy just got to practice and he's fresh. People don't think about that stuff all the time, but you're right. You got to find a good group that's going to work with you and succeed.
Yeah,
my group's that group.
They help you pin, because I think to be a good coach, you have to pinpoint those weaknesses. Yeah, you have to be able to see the weaknesses, the strengths, and work on them. Mm-hmm. Like, it used to frustrate me so much because I wrestled in high school, and my coach, obviously, he knowing me and watched me wrestle, he knew my strengths and weaknesses, and I hated wrestling him because whenever I wrestled him, he'd just go after all my weaknesses. He would not let any of my strength. He's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get you on your feet. And I just like, and then as I look back at it, I'm like, I should thank him. Like, I ended up winning a state championship because weaknesses, you got me better at those. And
it's hard when you're doing a sport. Again, that pride thing, right? We're men, we're proud, we want to be strong, we want to be the best, and it's super hard to lower your pride and not use your strength knowing you could win, and work on your weakness knowing you might lose that.
Yeah.
But eventually it's going to get better. And you're just helping the other guy too. If we're on the table training and I'm working on my weaknesses, we're both going to gain from that. You're going to get stronger. I'm going to get stronger. It's going to work. But if I'm just like pinning you every time and not, what good does that do either one of us, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to have a good team around you with someone who kind of knows what's going on.
Yeah. I think that goes for any sport. You need that. The people that support, because as I look back to our football and everything like that, when we played, and it's like we had some good years and everything like that, and there were times that in a leadership position that I feel like I failed the team, in not on the field, on the off the field actions. Like I remember times losing my shit when I'm calling the plays on defense and coming off with a player who didn't do it, and instead of coming at them and talking to them respectfully, I just lose my shit on them. And not only did I just lose respect with him, but I lost respect with some of the team because I didn't control myself.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to, and I feel like that's why sometimes I'm like, I miss it now. I wish I could go back and be that better leader and be a better player.
Yeah,
Like
I always thought that too. I wish I could go back to high school with the knowledge I have now.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of a freak would I be? You know?
Yeah, and like and being able to be coachable, being coachable, and then be a better leader than those leading by your actions and everything like that.
Or just even understanding your body and how things work, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, my goodness, I wish you could go back with it.
Yeah,
with the knowledge you have now,
Yeah.
for sure.
So, do you have any big matches coming up? What are your kind of training regiment now? Where are you kind
So
of headed?
I'm kind of in a rest period. Like, I don't have anything serious. I just got offered a match in Manchester, Manchester, England.
Okay.
But I don't think I'm going to take that. I just found out last week that I've got a bulged disc in my back, and it's been causing me issues. The nerves have been like making my legs and hips not work right. So I haven't really been able to focus a lot on training, and that this is at. I don't necessarily like the format of it, and the person they want me to arm wrestle, it benefits them way more than it benefits me. And like, I want to arm wrestle this person, but I don't want to go where it's a lose-lose situation. I want it to be fair, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to turn that one down, even though it would be an awesome event. It's a whole week long in Manchester, and they pay me to get there. They house you. You're in. It's kind of like what's that show? What?
Big Brother.
No. Well, kind of like that, but the fight where they put all the fighters in one house.
Oh yeah. The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. You know, it's like that, but it's for arm wrestlers. So you're all in the same house, living and talking trash. It'd be a lot of fun.
Okay.
But I just don't know that it's the right situation for me. So it's especially right now when I'm going through this back issue, and I've had a lot of stinking issues lately. Like, my body is falling apart. Like I said, I broke my arm in an arm wrestling match, and I had that. It's still not the same as it was then. Yeah. You got to get through these. You got to heal to compete at your best, and you're always wanting to compete. So right now I don't have anything serious. I've got a few matches, but a few tournaments that I want to go to, but nothing like a big match right now.
Okay. So so you're saying you just want to kind of compete until
you're
done, or just I'm saying like long run. You're like, I want to keep competing.
I want to
as long as I'm top.
Yeah.
Do you have any other goals with it, or you just kind of like?
I still have a feeling that I really think I could be the best in the world left-handed. I really have a belief I could. There's a lot of young guys right now that are, oh my goodness, and like they're like half my age, and they're huge, and they're Eastern Europeans where they arm wrestle. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They don't do anything else. They're paid to arm wrestle. And they also have very good nutrition coaches that help them in a lot of ways. And I don't have anything against that. Do what you want to do. Be better. However, I think I ranked number 1 in North America left-handed. There's a couple guys on that list that number 2 and number 3, I really don't know. Like the guy that's number 2, he beat me last December. Then I beat him. No, he beat me 2 Decembers ago. Then I beat him last November.
Okay.
So we've gone back and forth. And if we met next month, he could win. We're that, right?
Yeah.
And the guy that's right behind him is from Canada, and his name is Devin Lorette. He's probably the most famous arm wrestler in the world right now. He's smart. Like, he's super smart. And that's the guy that they wanted me to arm wrestle in Manchester. But his endurance is insane. Like, he loves to get in these long, gnarly matches. And I don't.
Yeah.
I don't like I blow up and I get lactic acid. I mean, I don't do well in long matches. So I need something that's a better fit for both of us. It's kind of more in the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because that event there is it's a 6-round match. You have to arm wrestle 6 matches, and first 1 to 4 wins. Which I don't know why they do 6. Don't ask.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. But I want something that's more like the first to 3, like a best of 5. And I want something with strict rules where this guy can't play his games and anyway. But yeah, so I still want to compete with these guys. I want to know for sure that I am the best in North America. I'd like to take some more matches against Europeans. I've lost my last 3 big matches. So it's kind of tough. I won a world championship in 2019. And I feel like at that point I was right there, right? Beat a bunch of Europeans at that event. Well, since that event, I don't know that I've even beaten the European. Well, yeah, I did break my arm after that, so that is a big deal too. So I don't know if I'm back to where I was before I broke my arm, but I want to see. I still want to compete. I want to compete against those guys and see if I'm that good.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think as a competitor, there's never a time you don't want to beat the guys in their prime and to just
you want to know if you're the guy, right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I really feel like I can compete with them.
Yeah.
We'll just see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. We've been going for a while. I guess we can kind of wrap up with a couple final questions of we talked about earlier, kind of the system and like that, and then but now I generally ask my guests, like, what do you think society is either lacking or needs right now the most? They could just, as people in general, like a lot of people like Bracken on here, he's like, we need to be neighbors again and things like that. I get a lot of things like that, like just kind of being more supportive or more. Is there something you think that you could see from everything you've gone throughout the years? There's something we could use or something change or
truth. I think that the world needs to live off of truth. And I hate this saying that, well, this is my truth. Truth is truth, right? The sky is blue. That's what it is. Like you can't change that.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as society is bending the way people see each other to fit certain ideas or lifestyles and making people say things that aren't truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to go out and say certain things and but just live in truth. Yeah. If you want to be something, but don't make me change my truth or the truth to fit your truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
I just think we need to look for what is right and follow it. And I don't think that there's 2 + 2 is always going to be 4.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
And I think that is what truth is. We just need to find what that is. And if you want to be something, be it. Fine. I don't care. All the power to you. I'd love to see it. You can.
Yeah.
But if it's not truth, don't make me live that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay. And then the other one, the one that I kind of end every episode with is like, if somebody could take one thing from this episode, like if they could learn something, if there's one point that you think hit the best, what do you think that would be?
From our conversation or just in general?
From our conversation, just that we just had.
Well, I have a YouTube channel as well. That's not very big. I do see, but I always end every one of my videos with approach life's opportunities like I do a meal. Don't miss out.
Yeah.
Right? Like find what's good in life and get it.
Yeah.
And if you are in a situation, a young kid that's got a couple new charges, find good in life and go for that. Don't keep going down the same path trying trying to make life better when it's not going to be found there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Find the good opportunities in life and chase them, get them.
Yeah.
I really think that anybody in life can do that. I really think that your attitude is huge. And when you find that opportunity, use a good attitude and go after it.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. So, and unless there's anything else you want to add, I mean, we can end off. I think that's a good note to finish this up. But
well, I appreciate you having me on. I'm not like the most literate person in the world, but I do enjoy talking about the things I love, and I do love arm wrestling, and I really enjoy watching people change their lives for the better.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to get paid to do so, it's worked out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. I thought like with everything you'd seen and been through, and then getting into the peak of, I mean, something like your peak arm wrestler, like to be ranked number one in North America and to win a world championship. Like people don't have those accolades all the time, like, and be able to have those experiences. I'm like, let's just share a little bit of that and get into it. And so
I have been blessed. I've had a lot of great opportunities from arm wrestling. I would have never guessed that I would have been able to go as far as I did, and it's been a good run. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and hopefully, if I have fans out there, if there are fans in arm wrestling, I've left a good impression on them that there's good in life, and you can find that in people.
Yeah.
So
what is your YouTube channel? We'll just throw that in just so people
oh goodness, I think it's Kody Spur. I think it's Kody Spur.
Okay.
I also have Instagram and Facebook, Kody Spur Merritt. So
yeah,
Kody Spur is at Kody Spur on Instagram, and Facebook is Kody Spur Merritt.
Yeah.
So I've got a few videos on YouTube. They're nothing great. It's arm wrestling based and some shooting. I really enjoy long range shooting, so I do a little bit about that on there too.
Cool. I'm like, I like to make that plug that if there's something you're doing or people can find you, that they can go see that. And so
I wish I were better. Do you edit this stuff, or do you just basically spit it out?
I will edit. I mean, I'll go through and look, but I mean, a lot of times I'm like these conversations because like you, I'm not very literate, and I'm not very bright. And right now, I'm like I'm a dumb construction grunt, so people have to bear kind of with. So we can go through if there's things that you.
No, I was just asking because when I do my videos, I record it and I push send.
Yep.
Because I actually hate putting up a camera and talking to myself.
Yeah.
I loathe it. I'm not good at it. I would much rather sit and talk to a buddy and record that and send it out.
Yeah.
Way better. And I'm not going to sit down and spend hours editing this video to make it pretty. If I had somebody that did all that work for me, I could really get into the social media thing. But as it is, I'm not a huge into that kind of stuff. So people get mad at me that I'm not putting videos out every week, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I've had a hard time doing my solo, because I've only done a few things by myself. I'm like, it's harder.
Having the
conversation.
Right? I'm like talking about nothing.
I'm like, I don't know who I'm talking to, who I'm addressing, and it just feels weird. And I'm like, what am I even talking about right now? I'm like, having a conversation is way easier for me. And so
I agree with you. People always say, hey, well, do videos of your training. I'm like, there's a bazillion people doing videos of how they train. I hate watching them. Why do you want to see another one? I don't ever watch people training videos. It bugs me to death.
Yeah.
But I would watch people shoot long range all day long. It's kind of weird. So,
Okay. Well, hey, thanks for coming on, and I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.